let me see if I get this right. We need to borrow $10 billion from China, and then we give it to Musharraf, who's a military dictator who overthrew an elected government, and then we go to war, we lose all these lives promoting democracy in Iraq. I mean, what's going on here? And you're saying...
So you would get out of Afghanistan and Iraq post-haste?
I would. And my saying during the campaign was, we just marched in, we can just march home, there's nothing good can come of it, and it's an undeclared war, it's an immoral war, we don't have any money, the longer we're there, the worse it's going to get, and we just need to come home, we can't nation build, and besides, I will win this argument because we are bankrupt and we can't afford it, so it's going to end badly if we don't come to our senses and just say, let's quit this militarism around the world. I mean, we're in 130 countries and 700 bases around the world, and we cannot sustain these, and it's pumped up by both the left and the right in the Congress. Oh, we can't do away with this weapon, it would be bad for jobs. There's conservative Keynesianism and liberal Keynesianism, always government management, which always fails and gives us the financial crisis that we're in.
You lobbied that the U.S. should be out of the UN entirely and we should disengage. So the idea, people look at that and say, you want us to disengage from the world. Isn't the U.S. a force of good in the world?
No, I think it's the opposite. I want to really be engaged. I want to engage. These people who talk about free trade and engaging around the world, they've given us sanctions against Cuba for 4 years.
That's true.
So I'm the one that wants to trade and travel and deal with Cuba. And same way with Iran. I want to be engaged. Right. I would say move the Navy away from there, talk to them and say, look, let's start off with a soccer game or something. Right. You know, let's break the ice. Let's talk to people. Let's not threaten. What we have in foreign policy is we have two policies. One, we threaten them. And if they do our bidding, we give them a lot of money. If they don't, we bomb them.
Right.
And I say, just talk to them and don't threaten them. And this whole idea that North Korea is a threat to the United States or the Iranians are going to drop a bomb is sort of like the argument that we had to go into Iraq because Saddam Hussein was going to bomb Washington, D.C. I mean, it's nothing more than war propaganda to build up the military-industrial complex.
In air, all empires end badly for economic reasons because you can't afford them. If you look out through all of history, eventually they collapse. And you may be militarily powerful, but eventually you undermine the finances. The Soviet system collapsed. I was drafted during the Cuban crisis. We thought we were going to have a hot war. We never did. The Soviet system collapsed, because they couldn't afford it and their system was non-viable. Our system isn't viable either. We can't have a current account deficit of $800 billion a year. We can't owe foreigners $2.7 trillion and think we can keep paying them interest and keep borrowing money. They'll quit doing it. And that's why the dollar's weakening. And that's why we face a major crisis. And all I want to do is stop it from collapsing. And that means you have to change foreign policy. You have to save a lot of money if we want to tide some people over here. The only way we can take care of the people who are sick and dependent on government programs is by cutting somewhere else. And I say we have to cut our empire back in order to save our economy here.
In a transition, and I talked about this in the campaign, in a transition, because we have so many people so dependent on government, say the elderly.
Right.
You know, my ideal society isn't going to arrive in a week or two or in a 4-year presidency. So my argument is that you can do that. You can take care of people, but never with a deficit, never by expanding the spending. It would be by cutting spending, and I would cut money overseas. I'd cut hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of this maintaining our empire around the world. Bring that money home, take care of the people who are dependent, and then work for the day where we can trust freedom once again and understand how free markets actually operate.
Question back here at home. You're an obstetrician. You delivered, what, 4,000 babies over the course of your career in medicine. You did not, as I understand it, take Medicare and Medicaid payments from your patients. You either took nothing at all or you negotiated down. Are these programs you would do away with, Medicare, Medicaid? And if so, what would you...
No, but I would have a transition period. Like I said before, I'd cut money from overseas and allow people who are totally dependent to have this care. but I'd let young people get out of Social Security and have them get options to have their own medical care. Because I was raised at a time when medical care was provided by a lot of people, and they had no government programs. And I never saw anybody out in the streets. I worked in a hospital in San Antonio. It was a church hospital, and it was always the lowest charge or nothing, and everybody was taken care of. Today, everything is the maximum charge because everybody's on third-party payments. The government has to pay. And nobody says who's the government, but the government can pay, so everybody gets the biggest bill possible, and everybody gets extra tests. So we have a system now that just encourages very, very expensive medicine, and it diminishes the chances of the poor people to have medical care.
So get the federal government out of medical payments altogether.
Eventually that is the case, but certainly in the transition period, that's not my goal, is to attack those programs. Matter of fact, I'm the only one that offers a way to pay for it. Right now they just add on. The Republicans gives us prescription drug programs, and the Democrats gives you S-chip, and they don't have any money. They're going to print that money. That's all they're going to do. They can't even tax anymore because we're taxed to the hill. So they're going to print the money, create the inflation, and cause the cost of medicine to go up. We're on a foolhardy course that has to be changed.
What global responsibilities, if you were president, should the United States have? Does the U.S. have a role around the world?
Sure it does. It should be friends with people. We should trade with people. We should try to sort things out diplomatically. But we don't have the moral authority or the constitutional authority to impose our will. We shouldn't be either bribing them with our donations and foreign aid, and we shouldn't be threatening them. If they don't do what we want, we bomb them. I'm offering something different, something the Founding Fathers offered, and that is neutrality. Talk to people and trade with people and negotiate with people, but not to have these two choices of either subsidizing them with foreign aid or threatening them with violence if they don't do as we tell them.
The government does have to do something. I think we're very panicked. I think the electorate is clearly nervous. The government has to do something to kind of lay their fears, or we'll never get on track, right?
Yeah, and that is true, and we could if we had some sensible people here. And even though I am a strict constitutionalist, I don't believe in most of these programs, I still have an interim set of priorities. I would cut $500 billion from overseas. I don't think it makes any sense to blow up bridges in Iraq and then pay to rebuild them to no-bid contracts where the corporations never rebuild. I say spend all that money back here at home. We could save enough money by just changing our foreign policy, cutting down on our deficit, and still take care of people that we have taught to be so dependent. We spend over $1 trillion a year maintaining the American empire, but nobody wants to give up on the empire. Wow. Not even this new administration. They're pursuing the Bush policies in the Middle East, and they're not cutting back.